I recently shot a set of music videos for two classical artists, Tomoko Mack on piano and Gabe Bukowski on violin. Tomoko and Gabe performed Mozart's Sonata for violin and piano in G major. Unlike a typical music video where it's easy to cut from one shot to another, a Mozart piece, even a simple one, contains hundreds upon hundreds of notes that have to be synced up with fingers flying on the piano keyboard and the violin fingerboard. I usually use a Canon 5D Mark III for video, but I've given that up for a Canon M50. By all standards, the M50 is an inferior camera compared to the 5D Mark III, with one exception: dual pixel autofocus. This is something I'm starting to have a hard time living without. Here's the rig I used to shoot the videos. I shot with the M50, a Viltrox EF lens adapter, a Canon 35mm and a 50mm EF lens, a small rig cage, and a Sonal stereo microphone to pick up scratch audio. Tomoko and Gabe recorded the piece the day before in a recording studio in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and played over the recordings while I shot. We shot 8 takes with the camera at different angles and on a slider. Earlier in the week, I shot a stage play, and during the rehearsals I used a combination of lenses, and I settled on the Canon 22mm M STM lens. It worked out really well. One big problem using a non-STM EF lens when recording audio is lens focusing noise. The noise is minimal with an STM lens, and I like the 22mm f2.0 M lens a lot, especially if I have to record live audio. And the acronym STM stands for stepping motor. I use a Manfrotto monopod for the majority of the shots and a Glide Gear Dev 235 slider. I almost left the slider at home, and I'm sure glad I didn't, because the slider footage made all the difference in the world. To light the stage and the artist, I use a Westcott U-Light 3-light kit. I set the lights up facing the artist, and I put this small light behind Tomoko just to highlight her hair. Regarding the M50, I really like this little camera, and I'm starting to really depend on it. But even with the hot lights, I had to shoot at ISO 800. From my experience with this camera, this is as high as you should go, ISO-wise, without getting a lot of noise. There's noise even at ISO 800, but not enough to negatively affect your footage. So here's some excerpts from the videos. You can really see here how the slider made all the difference. Panning along this shot, I just put the little slider on my tripod and the M50 on top of it. It's very light, easy to handle, and I just move the slider manually. Here's where dual pixel autofocus really came into play. As I slid along, the camera took focus from Tomoko to the back of Gabe's violin. I just could not have done this manually. I have a Zhiyun V2 crane, but I didn't use it. Why? I like cranes, but I really like shooting with a monopod better. I didn't have a ton of room to maneuver around the artist on the half-circle stage, so that was a big factor. I also really like shooting with a monopod. It's a stabilizer, you can pan and tilt, lean in, lean out, get drone-like footage, along with a lot of other shots. A monopod is probably the simplest camera accessory to use, but one of the best. I shot with the CineStyle color profile and did a minimal amount of color grading in post. I used Final Cut Pro 10. CineStyle is free, and there are a lot of tutorials on YouTube on how to install it. Like other people shooting video with the M50, I share some of the same complaints. I wish it had a headphone jack. I wish I could see audio levels while shooting. It's really annoying that the display is obstructed from swiveling and tilting when a microphone is plugged in, and I wish it shot in a higher resolution format rather than just MP4. I know it's an entry-level camera, but with these few improvements, it'd be spectacular. For all the M50's little faults, its saving grace is a dual pixel autofocus. I'm a one-man crew, and I could not have got the footage I did without it. The little M50 is now my go-to camera for recording live events and music videos. Even with its shortcomings, I trust it and it performs great.